Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom Orr. Tom, how's it going?
Tony, it's Christmas week. It feels slightly like the sports world is about to fall apart completely. Um, are we 2 days away from our pets' heads are falling off with pretty much the whole sports world? Because it kind of like you get on Twitter. I saw a couple days ago people saying, boy, it feels like March 2020, with all this news. And I'm like, that's a little over dramatic. And now it's like, mm, I'm getting a little March 2020 vibe around all of sports right now, which is not strictly speaking what you want.
Oh, and I think a lot of this, some of it is driven just media frenzy, and then it becomes a self-fulfilling thing. And yes, it can get uncomfortable as you see more and more COVID cancellations and just there's this feeling that, and we'll get into the show eventually. We will talk some football. We're going to start off with some basketball, but I have this. My theory is that if people feel like they aren't doing anything about COVID, then they're not doing enough, and that something needs to be done. Meanwhile, they've been vaccinated. They're doing everything they've been asked to do, but you just feel like I'm not doing enough right now. I need to do something, and then that gets into the sports world, and the NFL is finally changing their testing protocols to what the Big Ten does and what other college sports do, where it's like, if you're vaccinated and you don't have any symptoms, we don't need to test you. And that seems to calm things, but we have to get to that point. Because this has been a very, I'd say, certainly compared to last year, a calm college football season. And we've been playing through all of this. And it's been a wild couple of weeks. And the professional sports, they just need to be more professional, like college sports. I think be better, be like the amateurs.
Yeah, I was thinking back through all of the college football season, and I remember two games that were postponed due to COVID. I think they both involved Cal, which is kind of a weird coincidence. There was Cal, USC. That one got made up during conference championship game weekend, and I think there was one other early in the year that Cal, Oregon State or something like that got postponed. But yeah, it was like this blissful fall full of just regular old college football and full stadiums, and it was great and everything was wonderful. And now we're kind of sliding back into stuff's getting canceled all of a sudden. Like there was just sort of this like blast of, hey, like half of the Browns are out and the Blue Jackets have one of their games in Canada. I think it was the Calgary game canceled. And, all of a sudden then the Ohio State men's basketball team had a couple of games canceled. And it was like, oh, I forgot about this. This is bad. Let's not do this again. Let's just go back to the thing where everything was fine again and we were all kind of living our normal lives. Let's do that. I like that one much better.
Yeah, and you kind of got comfortable, and then this stuff starts popping up again. Like, oh yes, I remember this when you weren't sure week to week, and that was not a fun year. Even at one point last year, I think it may have been for the Illinois game or maybe another game. We're like counting, like, oh, if it's one more guy, they're going to be red or whatever, and it's like you would like they're going to be tested tomorrow at 7:30 in the morning. We'll know by like 8:15 or 9:30 in the morning, and it's just you're just like, I wonder if I'm going to cover a game this week, and now that's like I'm not to the point where I'm thinking the Rose Bowl is in danger, but I'm not to the point, but I am past the point of thinking that there's no danger. Like in terms of, oh, yeah, this game is definitely going to happen. I think it will. I expect it to. I plan on it, but it's not. I'm not like, oh, there's no way it's not happening.
Yeah, I'm still assuming everything's going to be fine and everything's there's not going to be an issue. But the first time some other bowl game gets canceled, it's going to be like, I don't like this. Do not want. So far, college football has been okay, and maybe the fact that college football is much bigger teams and much bigger rosters. College basketball with 12 guys in a locker room. If a couple guys get sick, all of a sudden, I mean, Chris Holtman talked on Monday about on his radio show about the fact that it was just basically like they were planning to play even with a couple guys out, but they they essentially ran out of guys. It was like they just didn't have enough players available between COVID positives and also the fact that Justice Suing and Seth Towns were hurt. I mean, that you can, you have a couple guys out with injuries, and then you have a couple guys out with COVID, and it's like all of a sudden, like your roster is so small that it's like all of a sudden going from 12 to 7. That's just 3 guys being sick if 2 guys are hurt. 12 to 7 is all of a sudden like, oh, we don't have enough players to play now at this point. So football, you've got a little bit more room, you've got a little bit more roster to work with, and if pick a position group in your mind. If one guy's out from here and one guy's out from here and one guy's out from here, that you can still field the team, and it's not a big problem. Even if you have an opt out or 2, you can still field the team. So, fingers crossed. And we went through a season where there were a lot of kind of weird absences week to week.
Mm-hmm.
And, with the way Ohio State treats everything as a state secret with, there was just a lot of guys who were playing one week and then out a week and then back the next week, and not a lot of explanation. And, when you treat everything as a state secret, people are going to not necessarily just assume you're giving them the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth when you say, oh, just a little banged up. So you wonder if maybe that was part of something that happened over the fall, but because of the way the Big Ten did their testing over the fall, they weren't testing asymptomatic guys who were fully vaccinated, and Ohio State was essentially fully vaccinated as a team. So if guys were asymptomatic, and a lot of college players are asymptomatic even when they're positive right now, or more or less asymptomatic, maybe that helped get things through the fall without a lot of interruptions.
I think one of the other issues with the Kentucky game being canceled is there a concern that if the Buckeyes got out to Las Vegas and new players tested positive, they were going to be stuck in Las Vegas for like 10 days quarantining. Now, that would be a problem for some people. Other people, it would not be a problem. But
and for some of the people who it wouldn't be a problem for initially, it might be a bigger problem for later, depending on how much you like being in Las Vegas and why you like being in Las Vegas.
You better get that room comped for a long time, because you don't want to have to be paying for it that long. And so, yes, Ohio State had to cancel the Kentucky game. The Tuesday game against Tennessee Martin also canceled. We had a question, and I asked for some listener questions for some shows this week, and so I got a question from Purgatory Buck that I'll just throw in here because it fits. Is when will the basketball team play again? Will college basketball be able to have a season? Will Attorney end up back in one location like last year? I believe they are scheduled to play next Tuesday or so. And I do expect that game to happen at this point. They play New Orleans. There's really, I don't think at this point, this situation, depending on, and Tom, do you remember, like, we would know, like Chris Olave, this is last year, just as an example, Chris Olave tested on Thursday. We need 14 days from that point out. And then you're counting the days on the calendar. Okay. Now, if he was actually, if he actually had COVID on the Wednesday, then he can play on Saturday. And the rules have kind of changed they've shortened them a little bit, but I'm expecting, I don't expect this thing to last 2 weeks of not playing, even though it's 3 games basically within those 2 weeks. So I would expect them to play. Now, will that, I do expect the college basketball season to continue on, but I think, Tom, I don't think it would be a bad idea to put the NCAA tournament back in one location like they did last year. I'm all for keeping it in Indianapolis for now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm at the point where anything 3 months out, I'm not ready to make any kind of decision on anything 3 months out at this point. Like 3 months ago, everything was smooth sailing, and at this point, we keep getting new variants, and it's like, well, this one, the vaccine doesn't work very well against, but it's not very serious for anyone who is, if you're vaccinated. It seems like the trend is that if you're vaccinated and you get the new variant, you're going to be positive, but it's like a mild cold. And at that point, can we just go on living our lives with a mild cold? Because I feel like cold and flu season did not completely stop the world 18 months ago, 24 months ago. So, so what is going to happen next with the virus and further mutations, and Sure. You'd like me to make predictions about 3 weeks, 3 months from now. I'm not confident about anything 7 days from now. So sure. Like, how about we just chill out and wait and see what happens? Like, when will the basketball team play again? I think you're exactly right. Next Tuesday versus New Orleans. Will college basketball be able to have a season? Yes. What will it look like? Shrug emoji. But I mean, like, we're not, this may feel like we're back in March 2020 in some ways, but we're not back in March 2020 because, like, everyone, like, the majority of people are vaccinated right now, and the cases are much more mild. You're not seeing, especially in vaccinated people, which is the vast majority of players and coaches and staff around all these programs. You're not seeing a lot of serious cases right now. It's just kind of like very mild stuff, which is just, at that point, it's like an annoyance more than anything else. So I don't feel like we're headed over a cliff again, even if it kind of, you're getting this weird echo of a time that none of us want to relive again. You're kind of getting the same vibes, but I don't think you're going to get the same kind of response to it just, institutionally. I don't think. But again, what's my level of confidence? Not 100%.
So then that just leads us into like how will this impact football? Could it impact football? And you've got some notes here if you wanted to.
Yeah, I felt like we I'm not going to lie. There was a text conversation involving myself, at least one other person on this podcast, and a third member of a traveling party that I may or may not be a part of in the next week or so. Basically going like, wouldn't it be the perfect ending to this incredibly stupid season to, end up in Los Angeles and then not actually have a Rose Bowl? Like, that feels like that would be a very apropos ending to the season. I don't think that's going to happen, but you never know. So here is the way the Big Ten is testing, like the way the Big Ten did their testing this year. Vaccinated players were only required to be tested if they had symptoms or were in close contact with someone who tested positive. And, if they were symptomatic, they needed to isolate until they got their COVID test results. So, but they were not going to be subject to contact tracing, just regular old, you have to quarantine, contact trace. So, if you were exposed, you just had to kind of keep an eye on your symptoms and then be tested 3 to 5 days later. So, this was not the 2020 season where they were getting tested like every day. And, that was probably, you look at how the ACC and SEC and other leagues handled it. You look back and how, with the benefit of hindsight, and go, that might have been overdoing it a little bit because everyone else made it through okay without having to do daily testing and without having to do, 21 days and then 14 days of quarantine once they kind of dialed it back a little bit. It may have been a little bit excessive, but it got the season played. So I guess that's something, but that's where things went this fall. My assumption is, and we could have to check on this, but my assumption is that, as of last year, it was you just stay with what your conference let you do. So if the Big Ten left it up to the schools, my assumption is it's going to just continue to be up to Ohio State, and they'll probably continue to handle it more or less this way for the Rose Bowl. So, that sounds like it's less strict than what the NFL had going a week ago, and now the NFL is kind of dialing it back because they're getting a bunch of guys who are testing positive, who are vaccinated, who are not really having lots of symptoms. And I think the NFL is kind of realizing like that might be a little bit overkill. So, I think this is a developing situation, as they say in the TV business. But that's sort of where things stand right now. Given that, I don't expect there to be such a massive COVID issue that the Rose Bowl gets canceled, or, a lot of other bowl games get canceled the way that a lot of basketball games are getting canceled. Again, going back to what I said at the beginning of the show, which is because the basketball team is 12 guys, you only need a couple guys to be positive and, symptomatic to get tested and then positive to really screw things up. Football's a little, a bigger roster, so you can maybe get away with it a little more than you could there.
A lot of these basketball non-conference games are they're a little bit of a luxury rather than a necessity. I'm not saying bowl games are a necessity, but there's a lot of invested into them to where, like, okay, we're going to play it, because if we don't, there's tickets have been purchased, all of this, a lot goes into it. the the changing of the rules for the NFL kind of reminds me of my days back working in an office and like the corporate thing where every 6 months or year you would take surveys and they would ask you questions and they wouldn't like the answers. So they would ask the questions in a different way to get different answers to like they're trying to say like things are going well, aren't they? And then the answers they're getting back, it's like, no, it's they're really not. They could be better. And so it's like you just got to keep massaging things until you get the results that you want. And that is what the NFL has done here, going with the college rule, which should help. I don't follow the NFL closely enough to realize that they weren't doing things that way, and that's it's a bit excessive considering all of the oversight there, but
and Tony, I'm going to, speaking of TV news terms, breaking news. So if you, like my family, were planning on going to the Blue Jackets game on the 23rd, I have bad news, friends. All Blue Jackets games have been paused at least to the completion of the NHL's holiday break on December 26th due to positive cases within the team over the past 2 days.
Yeah, so they had the morning skate was canceled, and
yes, there was one guy out there for the morning skate because he was someone who was not going to be playing tonight, and then now there's no evening skate, which is because they were supposed to play, I believe, in Buffalo tonight, which is not great, not strictly speaking what you'd want.
Tom, I thought we were through this of having breaking COVID news like during the show, and now this has been canceled. I'm what a time to be a downer. This time of year, got so many people so happy that, it's the holiday season, and we spent the first half of the show talking about this.
Yeah, and I mean I'm sure that the Rose Bowl folks would really love to have a Tournament of Roses parade and a Rose Bowl game. So I'm sure they're going to do what they can to make it all happen. So yeah, I'm this is a season of hope and renewal and the start of something new. And yeah, this is the Marty McFly gif. Like, hey, I've seen this one. Like, I've seen this one and I don't care. Someone change the channel, please.
Well, I think 1 week from about right now, as we record this, we'll be in the air on the way. So if news is going to break, it's like we're going to get to the layover in like Vegas and check our phones or whatever, and it'll be like, well, do we continue the leg, or do we turn around and head back home?
Feels like we owe it to the people to go spend some time in the sunshine of Southern California, doesn't it?
Well, the thing is, Tom, I already checked the weather, and it's going to be in the 50s the entire week.
Oh, that sounds terrible this time of year. 50s, you say? Shorts weather then? All right, fantastic.
So, Tom, let's get to better news, the happier news.
I'm sorry, you must be looking at a different part of the rundown than I am.
So, Darrion Henry-Young, Ohio State defensive end, redshirt freshman defensive end, has transferred and entered the transfer portal. A Cincinnati kid may look to head back to that area of the country. Defensive end for the Buckeyes, who was one of the top 100 players in the 2020 class, was a guy who that entire cycle was very, very key and was a very hot target with Paris Johnson being from Cincinnati. Jaheim Singletary? No, not Jaheim Singletary. One of the linebackers from the Cincinnati area that Ohio.
Jaheim Thomas.
There you go. See, I had the first part right. Where it was like those three, if they can get those three, Thomas, I believe, ended up going Kentucky and to play linebacker. Didn't necessarily have an Ohio State offer per se.
I think he had a air quotes offer, but not a this is the old there's the truth and the truth. He had an offer, but not an offer, is my understanding of that situation.
So he's going to hit the portal. I remember like he was kind of growing into a defensive tackle, and I believe the recruiting sites listed him as a defensive tackle because he had gotten big. And then when he, after he committed and signed with Ohio State, wanted to play defensive end, and I think the story that I heard was, lost a bunch of weight, but he wasn't as strong as they needed. And so this was a guy who they kind of had to rebuild. And he played in 2 games as a true freshman and redshirted, played in 2 games this year, one of those being Akron, the game that everybody played in basically. And that was it. And so this is not a surprise. I don't think he'll be the last one on the defensive line to go. But this is time. This fits the blueprint that we talked about. We don't like to name names on the show when it comes to transfers, but we can give you the formula of who to look for. And yeah, it's have played sparingly in your first 2 years. You have been passed by younger guys. All of that. That's Darrion Henry-Young.
Yeah, and a lot of times it's also guys who came in with certain expectations. My old theory that your happiness is your expectations minus your results, basically. And if your results exceed your your results minus your expectations. I can do math, emotional math. That's what this show is about today. Emotional math, results minus expectations. Like if your results far exceed your expectations, like you're expecting your baseball team to win 60 games and they win 100, it's like, wow, this is the best season ever. If you're expecting your team to win, 115 games and they win 80, it's like, this is the worst season ever. So, if you come in as a top 100 guy, and he was someone who very much did not want to be an interior guy. He wanted to stay on the edge and, lost his weight and all that kind of stuff. But it never really clicked for him. When we were at practice over the summer, it was like, he's pretty far back in those lines as they're, repping these things. And, you see, okay, Zach Harrison and Tyreek Smith are going through first. And then you've got, Javonte Jean-Baptiste and whoever running second. And then it's like, oh, Jack Sawyer and JT Tuimoloau. And then it's like, oh, and there's Darrion Henry-Young behind the true freshman. Like, that's not ever a great sign for someone who came in top 150 kind of guy. You're expecting you're going to be playing. If you're 2 years in and you're not playing well, then you're going to try and go somewhere you can play. Because I'm sure he thinks a lot of times guys will have different opinions on where they should be in the depth chart compared to coaches. And if you're not where you think you should be, or you're not where you want to be, then you're going to go somewhere else where they're going to tell you that you are where you want to be and where you think you should be. So yeah, he was, again, we haven't like sat down and typed out lists of here's 15 guys and 8 of them are going to transfer kind of thing. But if you did, he fits that profile to the point where if we had done that, he probably would have been on my list. And, a lot of times these guys will transfer and still be able to play somewhere else and be able to contribute. And whether that's at Cincinnati or, somewhere else in the region, like, great, good, go be great. Like that's that I think just kind of has to be the attitude at this point.
He had 1 tackle in his career. It was a sack. Tom, offhand, do you know when that sack occurred?
It happened in the Nebraska game.
That's correct. His very first game as an Ohio State Buckeye last year. 1 tackle, 1 sack, and then nothing else since. And played in the Rutgers game last year, and then like the Akron game and whatever game was after that one. So 2 games this year, 2 games last year. So technically,
Rutgers was after Akron. Yeah.
Yeah, technically,
Rutgers was after Akron. Yeah.
4 years of eligibility because last year doesn't count. Redshirted this year by playing 2 games, and good luck to him. But it just wasn't. It wasn't going to happen, and I guess it's better to realize that now rather than spending the spring at Ohio, like spending next spring at Ohio State and still realizing it. I saw somebody mention on the Ask the Insiders board, like this doesn't make any sense for Darrion Henry-Young because playing time was going to be much more available next year. And if you assume, even if let's just take Zach Harrison out and say he's going pro, you've got Javonte Jean-Baptiste and Tyler Friday both back. You've got JT Tuimoloau back, Jack Sawyer. So that's your top 4. So Darrion Henry at best is going to be a number 3 on the right or left side. And at worst, you've also got Jacoby Cowan. You may have Amari Abor. You may have Cormonte Hamilton back as well. So like that's 3 more into the picture. And who knows if say Noah Potter is back in defensive end. So he could go from anywhere from 3rd to 5th or 6th on one side of the line. And that's not any avenue towards playing time. And I don't think it was going to get any better for him. And he probably doesn't want to wait 3 or 4 years to see if then there is an opportunity, and certainly not 3 years, because that's what next year would have been. And it's just this was the best time for him to leave, in my opinion. Like I said, I don't think he's going to be the last one on the defensive line to go, because other guys will come to that realization, and not just defensive line, all over the field.
Yeah, I mean, that's just, again, there is a very clear pattern to this, and sometimes you get just the absolute shocker. But there are also just guys who have hit a certain point. Like, a lot of times, guys who have recently graduated and they've gotten their degree. Like, this would be a good time to make a change if I'm thinking I need to make a change. So yeah, I'm with you that and I think there is a very clear trend towards more transfers, not less, and and you've got your one freebie, so it's not a huge shock when guys do transfer. I just saw a great tweet from Joey Kaufman from the Dispatch. Since the NCAA's one-time transfer exception expanded in football in April, Ohio State has lost 11 scholarship players to the transfer portal. In the 27 previous months of Ryan Day's tenure, it had seen only 9 players leave as transfers. So more guys since April than in the previous 2 years and 3 months. So, and that's not, you're going to look at that and say, oh, what's wrong with Ohio State? And it's like, nothing is wrong with Ohio State. They're fine. Like, it's just, this is happening to everyone. And there are schools that have not seen as many transfers. Michigan has not seen as many transfers this month as Ohio State has. Well, Michigan's, why would you transfer when you can potentially go be part of a national championship winning team? Michigan had 16 transfers, I think, before like April this year. Like, it's not, this is not like this is a completely unprecedented thing. It's happening all over the country. Ohio State is, kind of middle-ish of the pack, maybe even a little on the low side right now in terms of transfers compared to a lot of other schools. But, you are also seeing it. This feels unprecedented for Ohio State, number one, because of the transfer portal and the one-time transfer exception, but also number two, because you're used to Ohio State playing for the national championship. And why would you leave for before the national championship game? Something else that, speaking of transitions, Tony, something else that you may see this year that you haven't seen a lot of previously for Ohio State, bowl opt-outs. That's a possibility as well. And that does not mean that everything's falling apart. It means, guess what? They're not in the playoff this year. So things are going to be a little different.
Yeah. And you looked at just one last thing on the transfers.
Tony, I put it on the tee for you, buddy.
No, I know, but I wanted to say, I just, when you include the entire calendar year, you're kind of double dipping on 2 seasons, because you're taking the people who transferred after last season and into the spring, and also including them with this year's transfers. And we've already discussed on the show how Ohio State's not really losing more than most programs. And certainly I would think Ohio State fans would actually want the players who aren't playing to go. That way you can bring in better players. But Tom, I want to change subjects. I want to talk about
what, Tony?
Let's talk about opt-outs.
Ooh, speaking of transitions.
Because at this point, at the recording of this 12:52 on a Monday, nobody has opted out yet of Ohio State's Rose Bowl. And I want to give people a sense of, when do players opt out? And well, we only have the one case that we can find that we agreed was the only one. That was Denzel Ward, who opted out. Was it the Cotton Bowl at that point? He did that on December 29th. So you've got another week or so, but that would kind of, I don't know, did it catch it? It was late because he traveled with them to the bowl game. It was an odd one.
It was very odd because, if he opted out December 29th, I think that game was, I think we went like
30th.
I think it was, we were there. I remember podcasting there in the media room at the hotel in Dallas and doing a show where we're like, I think, we haven't heard anything yet. It would be pretty weird to not hear anything, yet, and have him opt out. And then he opted out. I feel like it was the day before the game. That sounds right to me. But yeah, and that's it. And that's, you want to talk about atypical for colleges, like to have one guy since 2017 season and no one the last 3 years, but you've had a little bit of an aberration where Ohio State was in the playoff twice. And then the other time it was the Rose Bowl, and it was the first time to go into the Rose Bowl, and it was Urban Meyer's last year and all that kind of stuff. And you also didn't have a ton of first round guys on that team necessarily, where, Mike Weber wasn't going to opt out because Mike Weber was not a future first rounder. Dwayne Haskins was a future first rounder, but, only had 13 games of film at that point. So really kind of want to do, and, Urban Meyer's last game and send him out and yada, yada, yada. So, that all kind of added up to, you didn't have that, but the timing of this stuff is all very imprecise because, the Peach Bowl, another game that is happening, I think, on or around the same time as the Rose Bowl, you've already had the star players on both teams opt out. Kenny Pickett's out, Kenneth Walker is out, and what should have been an incredible game. And oh man, how bad is Kenny Pickett going to light up the Michigan State defense? I had some bold predictions like in the holster already for that one, and then he opts out, and it's like, man.
Yeah.
But I wanted to see 600 passing yards.
Right. I too wanted to go to Tashi Station.
Yeah. So, you've got guys who will opt out immediately. You'll have guys out who are going to, maybe take a little bit more time to decide. And, maybe guys have made this decision already and just aren't making the announcement yet for whatever reason. Yeah. It's kind of interesting. I am anticipating probably multiple opt-outs for Ohio State, but as of right now, and it does feel like we need to give you the exact time and date, December 20th, 12:54 p.m. Because as we discussed earlier, things change quickly at this point. But as of this moment, no one has opted out yet officially for Ohio State.
Of the four guys we have listed here: Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, Nicholas Petit-Frere, and Haskell Garrett. And I only added Haskell Garrett here because I saw somebody mention him. It's like, well, I kind of assumed he would play, but I think Olave is just a different kind of guy. He came back last year, didn't have to, and chose to. Garrett Wilson, I don't think he's going to play. Nicholas Petit-Frere, at this point, I'm kind of leaning towards he won't play. Haskell Garrett, I guess I would say he would play, but now that I've got him on this list, I'm not sure. But I think Chris Olave seems like the most likely to play. I also think he has a little bit more to prove than, say, Garrett Wilson or Jameson Williams, who are ahead of him on the draft boards. Maybe this is an opportunity for him to put some more film out there. Not that he needs any more, honestly. I mean, he's been around forever.
Yeah, and he's someone who, I think Olave I look at as he's a California guy. He is, he grew up in San Diego, so this is a couple hours from where he's from. Chance to play, like I'm sure as a Southern California kid, he grew up dreaming of playing in the Rose Bowl, and he got to do it in his freshman year of 2018. But now you're the leader of the team. You can hit 1,000 yards. You can put on some good film. I mean, all of that stuff. Not have that Michigan game be the last game of your Ohio State career. So yeah, he seems to me of those four the most likely to play. Wilson seems like the least likely to play, and the other two, I'd say Olave most likely to play, then Garrett, then NPF, then Garrett Wilson.
Yeah, and Chris Olave, 64 yards away from 1,000 yards on the season. Has never been a 1,000-yard receiver, leaving Ohio State with a number of accolades and records, and that it would be odd for him not to have 1,000 yards next to his name with all of the other numbers and where he is on the all-time receptions list and yards list, and obviously number one on the touchdown list. Tom, anything else before we get out of here? I feel like if we keep the show going another 7 minutes, something else might happen. So I don't know if we should or should we just end it now. That way we can talk about whatever happens in the next 10 minutes on tomorrow's show.
Exactly. That's tomorrow's show. We have, I guess we should hit kind of what our plan is for the week. You can kind of lay that out, because this is obviously a little bit of a weird week, because there's a bowl game coming up in less than 2 weeks at this point, but we there's also a holiday, and so we will probably spend some time not talking to each other over the next week or so. But go ahead and let people know kind of basically what to expect.
Yeah, I think we're going to be dropping a couple of listener questions episodes on Tuesday and Wednesday. Maybe try to do something Wednesday live, and then that will become a Thursday show. Something happens between like now and Wednesday, obviously we will incorporate those into the shows as well. And then let me look at the schedule here. We're taking Thursday and Friday off, and then hopefully have some sort of a show for Sunday. Is that okay if we take Thursday and Friday off, Tom?
That's fine, I guess. I mean, if you don't respect and love listeners enough to work on
Although
Christmas,
we will have the Wednesday
fine.
show, Wednesday live show the stream as a Thursday
Mm.
show.
Okay.
So
yeah, and then we should be back on the 26th. Maybe we'll talk some boxing. I don't know. I hear that's traditional. But yeah, we'll be back on the 26th, and then I hear rumors of palm trees on the 27th. We'll see. Big if true, as they say. But we'll see. We'll see how that all works out. But yes, we are not planning to abandon you, despite the fact that it is Christmas.
Yeah, and Monday we may be radio silent for a little while we are traveling, but then after that, you're gonna have a lot of us. I'm gonna get sick of us.
Too much.
Yes,
some might say
very
too
much. Very much so. So that will do it for today's show. I want to thank you all for tuning in. Hopefully you guys are having a good day, having a good week. And again, we will talk to you guys tomorrow. Have a good one.